monthly meeting of the IDA on Tuesday, May 18th. The first issue on our agenda would be the approval of the meeting minutes of March 26th, 2021. Are there any additions or changes to be made to those meeting minutes? If none, I'd like to have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion, Rod.
Who's that?
Mike
Mooney, second. Phil, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. We have an application before us from Saratoga Auto Supply. I believe Jeff Shore is on the line with us, and it's a warehousing to be located on 288 Milton Avenue in Ballston Spa. The Napa run project for warehousing and retention of jobs and some maybe 5 new jobs as we go along. Dennis, do you want to start us off with the?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is, as you mentioned, for Napa, Saratoga Auto Supply. They're currently located on Milton Ave in Ballston Spa in a leased facility. They're looking to purchase a 3.05 acre site at 352 Rollins Street in Milton. For those of you who wonder where that is, it's right across from the town hall property and right next to Cumberland Farms on that side of the road on Rowland Avenue. They want to build a 15,600 square foot facility. A part of it will be, majority of it would be warehousing. They will have some offices, and they will have a little bit of retail in a corner that is less than is about 26%. The project itself is it's $3.5 million. Currently, they have 12 jobs in the facility in Milton. When they move to the new facility, they'll grow to 23. And then over the next couple of years, they'll grow to 32. So it's a total over 3 years of 20 jobs. The pilot has been discussed with the town. Jeff has a good relationship with his town of Milton. And he asked me to reach out to the supervisor immediately. They discussed it at the town level, and they were very, very supportive of a 5-year pilot. So that's why it's shown as a 5-year warehouse pilot, 5-year for the first 5 years, just on the assessable value of the land, which would be moved to $600,000, which is the purchase price. The assessable amount right now is $353, approximately. Let's see. You've seen a rendering I included in the application. They do have approvals from the town for the project. Jeff's been in business for a while, and I've asked Jeff to go through, give a little history of what he's done, so you understand a little bit more about who he is and who the company is, and then we can go from there. Jeff, why don't you go ahead?
Good morning. I appreciate the committee's time this morning to kind of review this project. It's very important to my company. Just a quick background on our company and myself. Our company's been around since 2014. We are a group of 4 Napa auto parts store locations, 2 that are in Saratoga County, 1 in Warren County, 1 in Washington County. Our business model is primarily a wholesale driven business model where we service all of the repair shops, towns, municipalities, fleets, farms, OE dealerships in the surrounding communities that we're in. Our business has kind of evolved quite frequently or quite significantly in the last, 3 to 5 years, especially in the last 18 months, where it's really driven on the ability for us to supply product in an extremely timely fashion to our customers. We're looking for this pilot to be able to expand and actually add a warehouse to service ourselves and our locations. Currently, all of our locations are serviced by a Napa corporately owned warehouse out of Latham, New York. And that will remain a vendor of ours, but we would actually like to bring the distribution closer to our our own locations. There's obviously a benefit of scale, size and scale, of being able to buy product at a larger quantity at a lower price that helps us remain competitive against online competitors, other local competitors. And there's also just a need for us to be able to supply product faster. Consumers have the ability to buy, our type of products over the internet or, in many other avenues than they used to in past times. So, we're just trying to remain competitive, and we are a growing company. We started with 2 locations, Saratoga and Ballston Spa, in 2014. Since then, we've expanded with 2 additional locations. We have plans to expand that, to add additional sites. And this property is the first ground up facility that we're engaging in. All of our previous facilities had been leased spaces. Either we'd inherited the leases through the acquisition, or they'd been leases that we'd gone out and sought on our own. So this is us putting a footprint down in Saratoga County, which is home to myself and my wife, along with the majority of our employees. Saratoga County makes up about 70% of our business, and a lot of our expansion plans are in surrounding towns within Saratoga County. So we very much appreciate your time this morning and your consideration for our project.
Jeff, would you give a little background on increasing costs that have occurred during this process as you've started?
Sure. As you may be well aware, construction costs, for a project of this size have really risen since we started this conversation with Munter Enterprises almost a year ago now. So, originally we had proposed this project in September. Since then, the project's costs have gone up over $400,000. So, we don't want to back off on doing the project. We don't want to downsize the project. So, getting the help from the committee here and from Saratoga County is really important for us to be able to make this project a reality.
And the other thing that you're working on is an SBA 504, Small Business Administration 504 program, which allows you to, is a 50-40-10. For those who don't remember what that is, 10% of equity from the client, first position mortgage from his bank at 50%, and the SBA takes a second position mortgage at 40%. And it's also a fixed rate. Last time I checked, it was 20 years. They've also reduced, because of COVID, the SBA has reduced those fees dramatically. And that had a big part to play in this as well, did it not?
Yes, there are some incentives to be aggressive now and expand now because of the SBA. They've waived a couple of the fees that are involved in that, and they're also willing to make the first 3 payments of our loan.
Our tax money at work, gentlemen and ladies. Anyways, the sales tax exemption for this project is estimated to be $121,800. The mortgage tax is only on the benefits only on the bank portion, because the SBA doesn't have a mortgage tax because of their process. That's $11,813. The proposed pilot has $286,315 of estimated tax savings over the 5-year period. The incentives for this project from the IDA, if given, would add up to about 12% of the project. Just for your background, you look at those numbers, we'll go from 10 to 25% depending on the type of project and the type of pilot that goes along with those over the years. So they're definitely at the lower end of that, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. I think we'd be glad to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the members of the IDA?
I do have one, Mr. Chairman. If I mentioned to Dennis yesterday, just one correction on a chart on page 14, Jeff. That gives us a type of employment and the number of employment. But Dennis answered this. I just want to make sure that others realize this. I don't know if you want to address it, Dennis, our conversation.
Yeah, you're talking about the present employees?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
At the site that we're talking about, it does show that that the employment that is there now is at 288 Milton Avenue in the village of Ballston Spa. Those jobs will be transferring to this new site, and those are the 12 that are existing. The site is leased presently, and Jeff, the lease is up and the end of next year or
Yeah, September of 22.
September of 22. So their plan is to vacate that building when the lease is done, and hopefully their new building will be ready for them. It should be, but that's where those jobs are at this present time.
I bring that up mainly for the benefit of Jeff and Scott, not Jeff Shore, but Jeff Mania and Scott Duffy as they take on next year's reporting for ABO's office, because we will usually show that there are 0 jobs at a vacant site that started.
Yeah.
All right.
Understand.
Any other questions from our members? Andrea, you sat in on the preliminary conference. Do you have any comments?
I think it's a good project. You know, he's going to keep everything in Saratoga County, which is positive for us. And he's going to grow the business and, you know, trying to save his cost to his customers. He seems to be a very good businessman and has a handle on what his customers need and what he needs to do to grow his business. So, you know, the subcommittee is in support of the application and moved it over to the full board for this morning's meeting. So I'll make a motion that we move it forward to a public hearing.
Okay, before we get to that motion, is there any other comments from our members?
No comments. It's a good project.
Mike?
No
Let's see,
comments
Jeff-
either. It's really good project. It's what we're here for, really.
Jeff, the employment of the additional staff members that you'd be creating, are they basically coming from Saratoga County? Or where do you get your staffing from?
Yeah, they would primarily all be from Saratoga County. They would be based out of that facility in you know, at 352 Rollins Street. You know, they would, you know, the bulk of our employees now are from Saratoga County. Out of the, you know, between 48 and 50 employees we have now, over 35 are Saratoga County residents at this point.
Okay. And Dennis, you said that the land use boards have approved the project at this point?
Yes, sir. They have approved the site plan. This was the last step in his process. That's correct. They did it back in February, I think was the last meeting.
And you have the approval of the SBA loan? The financing is in place?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to present this to a public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who's that?
Walt.
That might have been Kevin. I think Kevin joined.
All right. Walt, do you second that motion?
I do.
Frozen there.
Okay, so Lori, it's a second by Walt. Any further discussion? If none, we have a motion on the floor. Can we have a vote on that, please? Mike, do you want to? We don't need a roll call.
No, we don't. No.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will set the public hearing at the end of this meeting. And Jeff, thank you for your time. Dennis, we'll let you know when the public hearing is. We don't know at this point. Right now, everything is still virtual. The public meetings law has not been rescinded, so we really don't know how we will handle our next meeting until we have more directive from the state. But right now, if as things are the same, it'll probably be a virtual meeting such as we have today. We're hoping that we can meet in person shortly, but we will. Dennis will keep you informed on that, Jeff.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to note that Jeff and his 2 Napa facilities were one of those companies awarded a grant through the application, PPE application.
Oh.
The IDA.
Okay.
Good.
Very good.
All right,
Okay.
Jeff, you don't have to stick around if you don't want to, sir, but you're more than welcome to stay on.
Thank you very much to the committee. I appreciate all of your time this morning.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Our next applicant is the Arnoff Moving and Storage of Albany. Dennis, you want to start us off on that?
Yes, sir. This is a project. This would be the third project on the former Race Mark facility in Malta on Stonebreak Road. This project will include 2 buildings. I've called them spec. They're a little bit between the two, and I know the Arnoffs will explain that. Building of 170 or 17,000. No, I'm correct. 175,000 square feet in 2 buildings, 125 in one and 50 in another. The facilities would fill out the property, the acreage that is there. They are currently working with companies to fill that space and utilize it for themselves as well as new space. They will explain that as well. The construction costs and other costs of this project bring it to be approximately $18,700, $18,700,000. I'm having trouble with my math this morning. Apologize. I included a couple things. I included some drawings or some aerials to show you the growth of that site. And then I also included the site plan that shows where the 2 buildings would be arranged on that site that would fill it up. I also gave you some information with regard to the amount of investment that has been made so far on the site. The request is for minimally the warehouse 10-year pilot, which is known as a 5 and 5. We would like to leave open an opportunity to come back before the end of 5 years if there's a major manufacturer that might go in one of the spaces. We could talk about that further, that being a major manufacturer from outside the state. But that would be something we could discuss at a later time if that was of any interest. But we would show that the assessable value of the site has also gone up. On my sheet that I showed you, it was set at 4.4 during a certiorari by the Race Park folks, and then it now has increased while it has increased on the assessable value rolls of the town. It's still on the 4.4 million as a pilot base. So they're now at $7.3 million of assessment. Michael and Craig are with us this morning. They would like to explain how things are going for them and talk about the need for the project. Michael or Craig, which one's up first?
Dennis, thank you very much. Thank you. And we also have Don Sagliano.
Oh, hi, Don. Geez, I'm sorry.
Our Executive Vice President and CFO.
Mike, before you start, though, I just want to put on the record what I did at the subcommittee meeting, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you.
For the IDA members who are unaware, I have to recuse myself due to the fact that my associate attorney has recently done some work. She is actually related to the Arnoff family. So I will recuse myself from any discussion or review or comments, based upon the professional relationship that my law firm has recently had with Michael's family and Craig's family. So I will mute myself and just sit back and just listen.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. And thank you for having us today. We greatly appreciate it. And just a quick briefing to refresh memories. We're a 97-year-old, 5-generation family business. I'm 4th generation, Craig 5th generation. And there are other members of the family who work with Craig and I each day to help us run our global logistics company. We're so proud to be headquartered in Saratoga County. And today we're calling this project Logistics Campus 4.0. For those of you that remember, we came in front of you about 4 years ago to present the concept of a logistics campus and what we meant by a logistics campus. And what's happened today is we have absolutely become a destination for companies, small, medium, and some very, very large Fortune 500 companies that need logistics services, not only focused in and around the Northeast, but really on the eastern seaboard of the United States. Companies like that, we're very proud to mention companies like Applied Materials, companies in the semiconductor industry, companies like Harley Davidson, who many of you might know make motorcycles and are evolving into a company making electric bikes, which you will be hearing quite a bit about here in the near future. Companies like Kawasaki, who are very, very interested in having Arnoff provide services to them, but we don't have enough space today to do what they want us to do. And the list, our what we call our honor roll, continues to go on and on. But let me just go back to the logistics campus. We have created a place where companies that need any type of logistics services, and that can be anything from a FedEx package or a UPS package or a DHL, because we're agents for all three of those global companies, or a loading dock to unload a shipment, or a package designed for a number of pieces that they have in our facility that are then being shipped overseas. We have built out the manufacturing capabilities at our property in Malta, New York, to provide a multitude of different consultation services along with hands-on solutions for companies of all different shapes and sizes. That includes our last round with you guys of building out a truck garage, not only for ourselves and for our fleet, but for all of the logistics companies that have requirements here in the Saratoga area that rely on us. If they have a truck that comes into our facility that needs service or breaks down or anything, right on our campus is a 24-hour-a-day truck garage that you helped us build. And that operates today under a long-term agreement with Ryder, a Fortune 500 company. So when Dennis speaks of spec buildings, I want you to make sure that you understand we are not a real estate developer in the scheme of building spec buildings. We build buildings, and what we've proven is to build buildings and acquire clients that not only use our labor and use our manufacturing capabilities within our building, but also may staff some of the space themselves. So Applied Materials, for instance, has about 125 workers that come to our property or are assigned to our property every day. But also Arnoff has staff, probably 10 or 15 people that work for them in outsourced capabilities side by side with their requirements and their people. So it's a wonderful marriage. And we've continued to prove to companies over and over again that we can provide the solutions. They come to our site, they see what we're doing, and they want to be a part of what we have envisioned and what our vision is evolving into. Our needs today is for a lot more space. We need to have a significant amount more space than we have today just to meet the pipeline. Forget about our long-term goals of growing our business into 10 years from now, but just to meet the pipeline of opportunities that have come our way. And quite interesting, Dennis mentioned a local manufacturer. We have a local manufacturer who is a customer of ours. They manufacture at another building in Saratoga County. They're a customer of ours for processing, packaging, shipping, trucking services at our facility. And they want to move their manufacturing to a building on our site to be closer aligned to the packaging and the shipping that we're doing each day. So every day they manufacture a product. We send a truck to their loading dock. We bring the product to our facility. We provide the packaging services and then the shipping services. They want to eliminate that trucking piece to just be right on our property and be aligned with what we do. So hopefully that helps to outline for you what our goals are. At one time it was called a vision. Our vision has we've seen the vision, and now we just want to expand upon it. Craig, do you want to add to that?
No, I think you summed up kind of our vision for the site, and we continue to expand upon what we've built and continue to build, even with the existing tenant that was on the site when we came here, Applied Materials. We've continued to add services onto our agreement with them. We're their landlord, we're their crating shop, we're their transportation firm, we're their what they call forward stocking location. So any of the small parts they need for their machinery, whether it's up the road here at Global Foundries, out at the new plant in Utica, up in Vermont at the plant down up there, or down in East Fishkill, we're their local area stocking location for small parts. And then finally, we're just rolling out a kitting operation to help them with their preventative maintenance service line that they've rolled out in a big way over the last 18 months. And have really needed to outsource part of that kitting to a firm like ours who can support putting some of those small parts together and delivering it on time to a Global Foundries like facility so that those preventative maintenance projects can get done timely.
Craig, if you don't mind, sorry to interrupt you, but you were talking about the plant in Utica. Could you explain a little bit more about the work you're doing for Cree, which is a new semiconductor plant?
Yep. So we've been awarded a 3-year contract to become their transportation and local warehousing facility for the Utica plant. Obviously, the first thing that has to happen out there from the startup phase of all the tooling is actually the install of them. So what we do is what we call a buffer warehouse. So the logistics people over at Cree are buying the capital equipment to be installed into their manufacturing plant. Obviously, all of that can't be coordinated on a day-to-day basis to bring in a tool, whether it's coming in air freight from overseas or whether it's coming in ocean freight from overseas. So it drops into our warehouse, whether it's for just a single night or it could be up to 30 days or longer, so that we can kind of control the schedule into their dock, as they can only receive a certain amount of freight each day. And then they use us to kind of coordinate each one of those shipments. So we're currently, we have about 10 or so shipments in our warehouse, and we're slowly starting to bring them up to their fab so that they can start to install those. But one of the challenges that we've had is because we don't have enough space here in Saratoga County, we've had to bring some of that freight into our Dutchess County facility. And on top of that, we've also had to rent a secondary facility in Saratoga County in the town of Ballston Spa to help us with those projects. So we would hopefully get out of those ancillary warehouses and bring back to Saratoga County all the projects that really should be sit in this county rather than with employees and space in other counties of the state.
Thank you.
Dennis, just to add to what Craig's saying, and I mentioned Harley Davidson. So we started about a year and a half ago working with Harley Davidson on 2 projects that they had. One was for their proprietary oil, and one was for tires, shipping to dealers. So when you bring your bike in for service, the dealer goes online, it orders a service kit with oil, it orders a tire if you need a tire, and then outbound from our warehouse overnight, it goes to the dealer so that they can do the service. They have a significant amount of warehousing that gets done in Pennsylvania presently that they would like to turn over to us based on the proven work that we've done over the last year and a half. However, gentlemen, the problem is we can't accept the work because we don't have the floor space in Malta to do, and some of you have toured the facility. We are busting at the seams, and we would love to bring this Harley Davidson work in. It's very, very good work. It's good work for the employees that we hire. What Dennis didn't mention, we have 26 jobs open right now. You can go on Craigslist and take a look. If any of you have a CDL license, we could put you on the road probably by tomorrow morning. Or just handling work in our warehouse. 26 jobs open that we're interviewing for. And but this Harley Davidson is a typical example of a company, a Fortune 500 company that wants to come to our campus, wants to move jobs from Pennsylvania. They want to be with Arnoff, and we want to be able to meet the demand, and we need your help to be able to do that.
So the jobs that are created right now, you've got, at the end of last year, I think you had 124. Right now, we listed 121. Don't know if that's just a little blurb in the numbers, but you're talking about over the course of a 3-year project with these buildings, creating another 45 jobs. And that's shown on page 25 of the application. And they're all over the map with regard to professional managerial, skilled and also semi-skilled or unskilled. Any comments on what we all hear today is it's very difficult to find jobs, and that's always to find people to fill them. I think we're all hoping that as this all COVID starts to wind down even more, that the system will shift back over to what it was, where people need to go to work.
Well, Dennis, that's been my concern, is that pilots are based on job creation and so on. And in today's environment, there are so many openings right now, and we base our pilot program on the number of jobs created, number of jobs that have been retained, and our pilot. We do have methods to claw back if those jobs have not been fulfilled, and that has a concern that we will have to take a look at because of the current environment. Hopefully, things will be changing for us, but that is one of the requirements. You're telling me that you've got 26 job openings right now. We've given you 2 pilots already, and so where do we stand with as we go forward on the job creation? And that's what this thing is. That's what IDA is all about.
Well, last year they had 124 people. Their expected growth at the end of the first 3 years was 127. They still have, as we said, 26 jobs available. So if they filled them all, they'd be at 150. But that is an issue, and going forward, no doubt it will be an issue. We have talked about that, and Mike, I don't want to speak for you, that they do understand the process, that these are job creation issues. And you go ahead from there, Mike.
I think one thing to touch on in terms of our last round of growth, the last round of growth for our company was surrounding both of our household good and our final mile big and bulky delivery service, which are 2 components of our business that are significantly more labor intensive and require drivers and crew members to be out in the field for 10 to 12 hours a day. We're finding that those jobs are some of the most hardest jobs to fill currently across the nation. I'm sure you guys are fully aware of the driver shortage, labor shortages in general, but on our fulfillment side of our business, the work we do for Harley, the work we do for Applied, the work we do for a company called Dealer Shop out of Detroit, we fill those jobs not easily, but we fill them more easily than our final mile jobs and the jobs that require driver's licenses and such. And we have partnerships with different agencies and support people in need, like Wildwood Programs or AIM Services or Crossroads Industries out of Albany. And we're able to utilize labor in different formats that can pick and pack parts, and then utilize supervision to double check some of that work. And we've been pretty successful at keeping those jobs filled, or even through growth, filling new jobs. And that's really where this new facility is going to be used. The 26 job openings are more surrounding that previous line of business. We need to continue to look and retain and grow that workforce. But this next series of growth is really surrounding our fulfillment, pick, pack, e-commerce business.
And Mr. Sutton, listen, we absolutely respect what you're saying, but I think the answer to that, and it's not the final answer, but the answer to that is entrepreneurism and the American spirit of business to figure out the solution. And that's what we're here for, right? We can't just, as a 97-year-old 5-generation family business, we can't just lay back and say, oh, well, I guess we're not going to grow because we can't find any people, right? Now, there's plenty of companies and there's plenty of restaurants and there's plenty of businesses that have gone out of business because of that attitude. But our attitude is no. Yesterday in our executive committee meeting, one of the things that, in our operations team meeting we came up with is, can we support part-time jobs? We've never considered that. So we're going down that path. Can we bring in workers that only want to work 4 hours a day and shift them? So traditionally we've worked 8 or 10-hour shifts. Can we do something with 4 hours? Maybe there's a population in the community that only wants to work. So that's just an idea, right? But it's about creating solutions to what's going on in the environment. And I think that we ask you to rely on us to be that local entrepreneur that is going to figure out how to overcome these barriers.
Understood. Questions?
Thank you.
Yes, I have one. Just to sum up the entire project. As I understand it, the total assessed value with the new project is going to be $22 million. You're asking for a pilot to keep the taxes at $4.4 million plus sales tax and mortgage tax. Is that correct?
The pilot is actually, the assessment now is it would go to 4. It would say 4.4. You're correct, until that rate goes up, Mike. So the 5 years that are here on the pilot sheet, I don't know if you've got these or not in front of you. Okay, those would that is an estimate. Those pilot numbers may be higher earlier because the original pilot goes to 50%.
Wow.
So what I probably could have done, or I should have done, is say that, and I've got to think about this for a second, Michael. 2017 is when it took over. I think it was a half a year, so they're 4 years in. I think
You're asking
they're 4 years in.
me or
Pardon?
Mike Arnoff?
3. Don,
3.
you're muted, Don.
I believe we took title in 2016.
Yeah, but your first tax payment came in
17.
January 17. Yep.
18.
So you're 17, 18, 19, 20, and now we're in 21. That assessment will be going up, Mike, to whatever that number is now, and 50% of the improvements. All right. And that is not shown here. So that is going to go up here. What we're asking.
When does that go up, Dennis? How many years?
I would
from now?
say next year.
1 year?
Yes, sir. And the key here to these numbers are, and again, estimates, whatever that number is, according to the pilot, is where it's going to be held. We'd like that to be held for the next 2 buildings. So these are going to be, which is what your question is. So that's going to, one of the issues Mike Valentine and I talked about was the insanity that might exist with trying to figure out the pilots for these and how they roll. I know Jim Carminucci is going to figure it all out, but he said, yeah.
He
But
gave us a high.
those numbers will go higher. Go ahead.
Well, you mind me jumping in on this then, Dennis?
Oh, please do.
Because you and I talked yesterday, and this will, again, we go through it with Scott and Jeff involving reporting and pilot billing twice a year. And we don't want to throw Don Sagliano for a loop as we go along here. Right? Right now, you're right. We have an amended and restated pilot that brings the initial building and then additions into this under one pilot. That project has an assessed value with the town of Malta at 7.3.
Mm-hmm.
It holds a pilot assessment of 4.4 million based on what we put into the pilot based on the certiorari.
Yep.
The question is, as you go along here, that amended and restated pilot goes along based upon the years of that first pilot. Now, one question to throw out is, are we going to create an extension to that amended and restated pilot, which has a termination, and include this next third project in, or do we do a altogether new third pilot separate from the others? Then you get into the fact, and if you look on page 23 of the, or I think it's 23 of the application, and I left this phone message with Jim yesterday. No, it's not 23. It's 13. There are 2 buildings in this application. All right, construction is to start in about 4 months. And the first building is completed in March of 2022. The second building is not completed and occupied at C of O until a year and a half later. And that puts us in a position of where we are carrying an open pilot. We're also carrying job numbers and all of, the reporting type things that go on. And these are almost like 2 distinct projects within one. That's just a complication on our end. Just as Dennis said later, as soon as Jim figures it out, we'll be okay.
But I would think that, and I'm just speaking, understanding what we've done in the past or what I've heard in the past, is when you put a project on, when they close, the pilot starts that number starts that year. Okay, that number. So when they start in the ground, that's when that pilot would start, the year that it would take over. So you break ground, that's the first year. If they don't get the second one built that fast, they lose those years of the pilots, because if you do a single pilot, that's what we've done in the past. Some people haven't always gotten to the point where they know that going in. I don't know if that's going to be the way this one works or not.
All right.
The key here is, I guess, and this is where it's definitely fuzzy, guys, where you have the idea of the pilot is that the improvements for each building don't go on until 50% of that improvement goes on in year 6. That's the benefit. So for the first 5 years, they don't get taxed at all, other than what's on the site as it exists, whatever that is. And then in year 6, 50% of each, when they go on, of each building goes on, and they ramp up 10% each year until year 11 of that building, and then they pay full tax.
Well, Dennis, that's actually different than what you just said.
Yeah,
That assumes
Yeah, you're correct. That is.
Yeah. You got to decide which way you're going to go. You're either going to do one pilot for 2 buildings, and if the second building comes on, it's going to get whatever's left of the pilot that was approved, or otherwise you're doing a separate pilot for each building.
The way it's written now is that it would be
Right.
one pilot, and the sooner they get the second building fit, the more benefit they get out.
Right.
The only thing that made me nervous as we're reading this, for just the paperwork part of it,
Sure.
we get back into, just as you had mentioned yesterday when we talked, was we're back into a quad graphics, 11 different projects on one site.
Yeah.
And trying to do a start and stop date for each phase.
The good thing about this one, this won't be 11. This will be the last one on that site. They won't be able to grow anymore, but I understand your situation.
Okay.
Actually,
Dennis, that is my question. Of the 40 acres that they were purchased from Racemark, this is the last parcel to be developed. There are no more parcels.
That's correct. Right?
This would basically use up the rest of the land that we could potentially build on. Between stormwater and these buildings, you're going to have very limited acreage to do anything with.
Yeah.
And how are you doing with the land use boards in Malta for that?
Planning board, Craig, you've submitted to the planning board yet?
No, we're still in the final phase of the site plan site plan with our site engineer. We're hoping to get on their docket very soon.
And you have had conversations with the town of Jamie and Orion and the gang?
What we previously did was we got approval for them to run the road that accesses the larger of the 2 buildings, and to bring the utilities down that road so that we could be set up to have this meeting and go back to them for site plan approval on the building and get a building permit. The buildings department, the town supervisor is well aware of our intentions. They're very much for it, but it still obviously needs to go through the process.
So the road was approved to go back there, and to be able to do that, they had to understand what you were doing with the 2 buildings, basically. But they haven't given final approval to that yet. Okay.
which building's going to be built first, the big one or the little one?
The bigger one of the 2.
Good question.
Dennis, I'll throw it out to Rod, but thinking about this application, we talked about the jobs. We have our our year-end reports that we file with ABO based upon the surveys that are submitted by the companies in December and January. As I mentioned yesterday, the last one that Don sent me, we had in 2019 year-end, we had 121 FTEs reported. And then the next year, for the year-end of 2020, we had 124. My request is that the 2 pages that are in the application that address FTEs be amended, particularly if you're doing any other work with the application.
Okay.
Or to take up next time, because we got to start with numbers where they are right now, because we'll be pulling up history when we go back to the state and start reporting.
Be glad to do that.
All right, thank you.
No problem at all.
So you got 2 places on that application you need to change to 124. Is that what you're going to do?
Yes.
Yep.
Excuse me, gentlemen, Don Sagliano, just want to speak up to what the conversation was regarding the tax assessment and the lots. And Mike, I don't know if this is administratively possible, like Valentine, if each building could be another dot, like dot 4 and dot 5, because we've already started that protocol.
Right.
That certainly could be something that that you could do from an administrative perspective.
Yep.
We finally have, after 3 years now, you and I have kind of understand it clearly, and I think that will also support the comfort level that the pilots will be kicking in at the different times.
Right. And I think you're correct, not say between it, when Jim and I, Carmenucci and I had met with the town supervisor and the assessor and followed up with correspondence to you, that position's changed hands now, but the assessor, who's, I want to say more important, but most important in this process, she's all set with that process. We could, the town would allow us to suffix. So you could do that. And then again, that goes back to maybe Dennis and Jim going through is how do you time these 2 coming in?
Yeah.
So,
And I'm sure Arnoff would be amicable to whatever requirements you may need, and at least you'd be able to discuss it.
all right.
You know, one other thing, Mike had mentioned what the assessment, if they went to 100% according to construction cost, would be on the site. What I've noticed is that through this assessment process, the assessor in Malta, the 2 projects that we did in the second pilot, the original cost of that was about 4.7 million. And the assessment that she has down for those 2 buildings together is 2.7 million. So it's actually less than what the construction cost is, even though they're at 100%.
Right.
So that 22 million may end up being less because of her assessment number at that time.
Right.
We're only using 100% of that because that's what they are. I can't remember if they're 100% or not. They might be. Yeah, they're still 100% at Malta, but it's ultimately what their assessor does on that assessment. So I just wanted you to know that it may end up being less than that if they decide to do that.
All right. Jim had a follow-up question to Don's comment. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's all right. Go ahead. Do you still have it, Jim?
Me? Yeah, well, I mean, I think at the public hearing, if this is approved, you just need to decide what you're approving, whether it's 1 10-year pilot for both buildings or separate 10-year pilots for each. That's all. It makes a difference.
Okay.
And if the applicant decides it's looking for a separate pilot for each building, I think you need to modify the application and indicate that.
A question, Mr. Arnoff, if the project is not approved by the IDA, would this project still go forward for you?
Definitely not in the presentation that you have in front of you. It would have to significantly reduce in size if it goes forward at all.
Okay.
Part of our the savings that if we do get awarded the pilot and the mortgage recording tax and the sales tax, part of that savings is going to go directly into higher wages for our employees, because what we've found especially on our warehousing jobs is with the competition we have mainly at the exit 16 warehouses, Target, Ace, and down in Castleton with the Amazon facilities, those larger corporations have the ability to provide significantly higher wages than a family-owned small company like Arnoff. And what we're hoping is that if we could be awarded these cost savings, is we could bring the building in for significantly less money than what it would cost us to do it on our own, and we can raise our wages with some of those savings to be able to bring in the correct talent to be able to staff the buildings. So not only is it going to add the jobs, but at a higher wage that is more competitive with the landscape of the Ace and Target facility and Amazon facilities, who are now, giving base wages to labor at $18, $19, $20 an hour, which we've been able to raise our wages to a certain extent, but somewhat has been another limiting factor to us bringing on additional employees. But without those savings, we just can't make the whole project work, whether it's based on increased construction costs, increased labor costs, the difficult time of finding that labor. Bringing all of those challenges together without the county's assistance in this project, it's just not going to happen in the way we're set forth today.
But you're entrepreneurs. So that's what you told me earlier, that you guys are entrepreneurs and you make things happen. So, but in any event, any other comments from our board?
I'll make a couple comments. First, I like the project and it sounds great. Second, I have no issue with sales tax and mortgage tax. And I just think the ask with the pilot is a little bit high. So, maybe we could, do something to wrap everything up into one pilot at one amount. And that might solve some of the other problems that we've talked about as well. And I don't know if Jim has any comments on that.
Mike, are you proposing consolidating all the pilots, including the ones that have previously been proposed, or just doing one pilot for the two new buildings?
Yeah. So eliminate the other two, do the new one at a fixed amount for the 10 years. And I would propose something, less than what they're asking, but some number, because I feel like we want to help and we want to be good, but I think the ask is just a little much here.
Well, and no, Mike Mooney, I think before we make any adjustments to any of the pilots, I think this project should be advanced and approved by the land use boards at Malta before we make any type of amendments to any of our pilots. So whether we consolidate everything and or go with just a singular pilot on that third project. I think that we really need to have, I don't want to get the horse before the cart. So the cart before the horse, but in any event, I think we really need to see what the town land use boards want to do with this project.
Are you talking about the planning board, Mr. Sutton?
Pardon?
Are you talking about the planning board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you don't have approvals yet, Mike, I don't believe, right?
No, we don't. We just concept.
Yeah, and that's fine. And this is, in my mind, this is a concept for us as well, until it's approved. Once you get approval, then we can sit down and really kind of hash out what the best route might go for your project and or what's best for the taxpayers of Malta and Saratoga County. Any other comments from our board?
Rod, this is Walt. I agree with you, Rod, in that it should be approved at the lowest level, which is the local level, and then it comes up to the county level, which is the IDA, basically. And I agree with you that they should get it approved by the planning board for the town of Malta.
I'll just mention that historically, the IDA's requested that projects come in early and not wait until they've been approved before they come in, because I think the thought process is that if it's a done deal, that makes it harder for the agency to make a determination that this project's gonna not get done without IDA assistance. So I'm not sure that's inconsistent with what you're saying, but I still think, you know, your policy is to encourage applicants to come in early, not late.
The other thing to go with that is that we have two stages after the public hearing, we have two stages of resolutions. The first resolution we would call the inducement resolution. And most of the times local seeker hasn't been completed. And then we come back with another resolution after that, which is either what we call our final resolution or used to be finance resolution. So in that regard, you have something to guard what you're looking at, is that you don't give it that final blessing right after the public hearing. And that third resolution comes about at the speed at which the applicant wants to progress it. And I think that's sort of something like what Jim was alluding to.
Okay. Phil, do you have anything?
No, I can see where the progression is going here, but it would also give us an opportunity to straighten out which buildings, what the terms are with regards to length, give us a more solid number to look at, or at least a choice of numbers. And I don't want to usurp the planning board and town of Malta at all, or give them any direction that they don't need from us. But I do like the project, and I think it's a well thought out, and I wouldn't, with a couple of twists or tweaks, it looks good to me.
Rod's left the building.
No, I didn't. Sorry about the dog. Any other comments at this point? Okay. Do we want to set up a public hearing for the month of June?
Well, may I throw something in there, Rod? Our regular votes on this is to accept the resolution is one thing, and then establish a public hearing. And I think what I'll do with Lori is change that wording in the first one to include accept the first project we had, accept the resolution or accept the application and establish a public hearing. So
before you have a public hearing, you better establish what you're going to do with these pilots.
Right.
That has to be sorted out first.
Yeah,
You're correct.
I don't think that we can go forward with a public hearing without knowing exactly what we're going to be voting on, and what's going to be the presentation for the public hearing.
I like the opportunity to clean it up and to have one and streamline this. I think probably both for Arnoff and for Jeff and I, and as the agency itself, just dealing with the administrative side of it, that's attractive, I think.
I would look to table this request until our administrative staff sits down with the Arnoff staff and look to see what is the best route to go in terms of the either consolidating the pilot or go on an individual basis. Leave the two pilots alone and go for your third pilot. I think that it's too confusing at this point in time to have a public hearing and not knowing what we're going to be voting on.
I agree, Rod. That makes a lot of sense. And I'll even put forward a motion to table it till next month. We can negotiate the amount, clean up the pilot with the Arnoffs, and then revisit it then. And I think that makes sense too, because it doesn't seem like they're that far along with the town as well.
Michael, Mr. Mooney, who should we be directly communicating with? Mr. Valentine?
Mr. Duffy, Mr. Valentine.
Okay.
And I think, Dennis and Jim are going to be involved in it too, into the modeling of whatever option. We might end up having a look at the way it's going right now, or changing it to one and streamline it and then make an assessment as, you know, the board would make a judgment, you know.
Yeah, and certainly we would run this by Jim Carmenucci, our legals, to make sure that we're on track with what we can and cannot do. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we can do anything, so don't let that hold you back in terms of what you're looking to do. If you're looking to consolidate because you think it would be easier to administer the pilot, that's possible, but we can also do it without doing that. If you're looking to consolidate and reduce what they're currently getting, existing pilots, and then grant something for this project, that's a little bit of a different approach, that's all. And I'm not sure what your intent is, but I just wanted to point that out.
Mike
We
Mooney,
can implement anything you want to.
Mike Mooney, are you talking about the value of their first two pilots, keeping that the same, and you're just talking about reducing the, you know, the pilot value on this third?
No, what I'm suggesting is that we make one pilot for all three projects at a fixed dollar amount.
And we'll see if that's a benefit for the RNOFs and see how it plays out. Let's do the numbers first before we make any decisions. And then maybe the modification, because I think the IDA has got to be aware of the current economic conditions, and it will change, as we know, that it is very difficult to meet the job requirements at this point in time. The more the government gives away money, the less people want to go to work. And this is going to be a requirement that we have to have, and it's built into our agreements of meeting the job requirements for any recipient of our pilot program, whether it's the RNOF or ABC company, it doesn't matter. So I want to be sensitive to the job creation. I think, you know, from our point of view, from the ID's point of view, when the RNOFs decided to move up to Malta, it was a great project. They did exactly what they intended to do. They created jobs. They created a number of jobs. We have had the tour of the campus. It's wonderful. And I think what they're doing is spot on. And they did everything that they said they're going to do. But this third bite at the apple is a little bit more confusing to us, and to see how we can better serve the RNOFs, how we can better serve the Saratoga County and the taxpaying citizens of the county. There's a lot of money, almost $3 million in savings. That's a lot of dough. And I think we do have a fiduciary responsibility as the IDA board to make sure that we do what is logical, what is fair and equitable to both the RNOFs and the taxpayers of this county. So my suggestion at this point, and Mike, if you want to throw this on as a motion, to have the RNOF sit down with our administrative staff and see if we can hammer something out.
Yeah, I will certainly make that motion to table it and meet with the RNOFs to clean it up, and Dennis, obviously, for, you know, that kind of model, one pilot for 10 years for, you know, the whole site.
Is there a second to a motion?
Second it.
Walt, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. We will table the request for the public hearing. We will sit down with the RNOF staff and team and with our team, and we'll hammer out some solution.
Mr. Sutton, we really appreciate your time. One final comment for the board, which we'll make sure when we meet with Mr. Mooney et al. And others, there are job numbers that are not included in that 124 that we just want to make sure at this juncture that you're aware of, and we will exasperate that with Ryder has a whole team of people, and AMAT has a whole team of people, and we can show a modeling how their business has grown over time as well. So when we look at the whole site, I know that that's sort of a hybrid difference in maybe other projects that I'm aware of that you've done, but we probably need to include those numbers as well.
Yeah, Mike, I don't disagree with you on that, because I think when you have, like you're saying, you're basically lending some of your staff to help Applied or Harley or these other guys. That is bringing other jobs in. You might not be totally responsible because you're not paying those folks.
Correct.
And if you can kind of summarize the potential of new jobs that are coming in that that Arnoff is not responsible for, that should be part of the mix. I agree with you.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Can we make that as a supplement to the application and not confuse the numbers within the application?
Yeah, no, Mike.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
should just be a narrative, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
That information is on the spreadsheet that I included with it.
it
yeah.
is. It is.
I think
Okay.
that's
Just so
where
you
to
know
go.
it's there.
Well, I mean, the Arnoffs will have a particular goal to meet, but I think the byproduct of what they want to do is bringing more jobs other than just the Arnoff jobs. So, yeah, keep that in consideration when we put the whole package together.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, you know, to make it clear, I can only speak for myself, but I think this is a great project, and
Thank you,
we'd be
Mr.
lucky
Mooney.
to have it in Saratoga County.
No,
Thank you.
and I totally agree that they're building out the campus as they anticipated to do back, 6 years ago, and I think we were well appreciative of the work that the Arnoffs have done, and we attracted them to Saratoga County, and they've been a good model citizen. So I have no problems on any of that, but I just think we have to tighten up the ship, see how
Absolutely.
forward, and we'll come to some kind of solution to the question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else, Dennis?
No, sir.
Okay. Mike, Craig, and Don, thank you for your time.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks, you guys.
Great.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, the PVA campus request to add subagents and sales tax exemption. Is that Mike Valentine?
Yeah, I just had that Jim and I had looked at this before, Jim Carmenucci, we talked about it. And I think, and what it is it came to a resolution that the company will submit ST60s directly to us for any subagents that they bring in, which sort of, it goes, it's not a practice that we have done with a lot of, but we have done it with Global Foundries. If you guys aren't familiar with it, but what we do is we set up the sales tax exemptions. Jim sends me the paperwork, which we wind up filing, reporting to tax and finance, and we name those companies, either the primary company and then what we call subagents, as those who are afforded tax exemption status. One of the another subcontractor out at this site wanted that status, but it wasn't within our paperwork. Then Jim added, and if you want to address that, Jim, talk about what you wind up doing, responding back to BBL.
Yeah, so we always allow applicants to appoint subagents for purposes of sales tax purposes. That often doesn't happen, but when it does, as in this instance, they have the right to do that, but they need to provide a form to us that we can file with tax and finance. So as opposed to appointing BBL as our direct agent, they're being appointed by the applicant as its agent, and we're just going to be notifying tax and finance of that.
All right, thanks. Dennis, you may want to note back to PVA, we have not received that ST60 since that email chain. Okay. Would you want to touch base with them?
Sure.
Thank you. That's all, Rod.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Scott?
All right, I'll touch on the, on the grant reporting here. We've had 6 applications in this 8th round, if you will. There was a total of $37,628.16 that we have reviewed and audited, if you will. Jeff, myself, and Mike Valentine all agree that these all are correct and have the opportunity to have a vote. The remaining balance in this grant program, Rod, is $34,749.18. We have one new application that's come that would fall in the next round, if you will. But obviously, you know, the volume of the dollar volume here and the number of applicants has reduced, you know, on this round. And I don't know whether that's because we've, you know, most of the people that know about the program have already, you know, we've got like 126. You know, this will make 126 applicants in this program. And there may be a couple in there in that number that haven't, you know, that were denied because they've already gotten support from Clifton Park or something like that. But rough numbers, that's what it is. So, you know, I would probably have the board discuss an endpoint on this and maybe discuss, you know, any more funding and how you want to do it, you know, in maybe one last round or whatever the board, you know, would like to do. But that's where it stands right now.
Okay. Do we have we've allocated $750,000. Where do we stand on the total?
So you've allocated 750, and to date, with this round here, you would have allocated about 715,000. So you got about 35,000 left.
Okay.
In the program.
So we need a motion to approve the applicants of 121 through 126.
Yeah, which was round 8, if you will. Yep.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept those?
I'll move that motion. Kevin.
I'll second.
And Andrea second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Consider the need for further funding. We have $750,000. Things seem to be winding down a bit. Again, as the communities and the state open up a little bit, I think there'll be less of a need for this project. Do we want to keep it at 750 and just expend that money at this point in time? And then if there's any further applications that come in, again, this if you recall, the program will stay in place until the state designates that this is no longer an emergency funding mechanism. So we could wait for the state to make that call and continue to fund until that time. But then we should probably have a cap as to how much we really want to spend.
I think it's, Jim, is it 60 days after, once the state declares that the disaster or, you know, emergency is over, days after that?
I believe so. I haven't looked at that in a while, but that rings a bell. Yeah.
I think the original paperwork that you guys reviewed back in August or September had a termination date, all right, going out.
Yeah, I think it's 60 days. I believe it is 60 days.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that we could do with this, if it suits you, the board, is that just as you were saying, we could, which we've already done, authorize up here. We only have one more application so far back in the office. I think the reason for only the 6 applications in this period we were going from April 29th up until this point, because we got late in April for considerations. I don't think we're going to see a great number, but there's no harm in taking the applications and going into the June meeting and then seeing what you want to do then. If we have, for whatever reason, we have dollar amounts more than we have money, you can take up a resolution at the meeting to fund maybe just those that are an overage or something.
That would be easy. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like that idea, Mike.
Okay. So we'll just go ahead with the process as we're doing now then.
just
I
continue.
agree.
Yeah, continue on, and we have up to $750,000, with $35,000 in the kick left, and if we expend that monies, then we'll reconsider. Okay, CFO?
So you're saying you don't want to put a drop dead date for applications?
Not at this point. Let's wait another month and see. We've got the monies
Fine.
allocated. Let's see where everything's changing on a fast forward basis right now with the state. So who knows where we're going to be by mid-June,
Yeah.
when we have our next meeting. So
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a big surge of
No.
applications.
no, I think that the plastic the shields are coming down, and masks are coming down, and gloves are coming off. So I think that the $750,000 will probably be our contribution to this pandemic. So CFO report.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing. Mike Valentine, when he talks to the applicants, can probably just mention where our funding is, between now and the next meeting, because it could conceivably go over the 750 mark, but we'll see how that goes. But on the financial side, nothing unusual in terms of our cash balances. The accounts are reconciled, etc. I did want to mention that in April we received our money from Luther Forest Tech Park for $125,000, so that we've reached agreement and finalized that contract to back out of the land purchase. On the balance sheet, I left the $51,000. I left that there just to mention. Basically, that's been our investment, our overall final investment for the development of the public utilities, et cetera, at the park. So I think that was money well spent, but it will drop off our balance sheet as an asset. Also, I wanted to mention that we received our first principal payment and an interest payment from the Saratoga County Water Authority. That was $200,000 that was deposited in early May, and that will be paid off over the next we have 4 more payments plus interest to get to $200,000. So that is that. Just a couple things on the grant program, by the way. I didn't need to go back and just check with a couple people who haven't cashed our checks. It's kind of unusual, but
Yeah, that is.
Follow up on that. And thus far, it's been a very quiet year, but Dennis is bringing in a few projects here, so we'll see how that goes in terms of closings, etc. But we're operating operationally, we're probably at minus 16,000 year to date, so no big deal there. That's
Jeff,
it.
are any of those people who have not cashed a check, are they they've been awarded a grant?
Yes, those are the people, Mike, I'm talking about. I've got one that was written on March 10th for $10,000. Spa restaurants, we'll have to follow up with that. There's actually one from December that I don't know why that one has not cleared, but we're going to want to follow up on those.
Who was that, Mike? Jeff, I can call.
That is Connie Lake Properties.
What project number was that?
I don't have it in front of me, Scott, but I can dig it out for you. I know the check number and that kind of stuff, so we'll be able to find it.
All right. Well, between the two of us, we can make those calls.
Yeah.
Was that on Honey Lake Properties?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the mill at Round Lake.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
46.
That's weird because they had 2 other restaurants that were
Right,
supported
yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I did receive a note from Brian Straughter, and he was very thankful for the check that they had received in his hotel projects. So, anything else, Jeff?
Nope, that's it, Rod. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other business come before the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for some clarity. As I have five applications in process, I would like to understand what the expectations of the agency is when it comes to planning board approvals. Because it's the 3rd or 4th time over the last few years we've had this question come up. Our application allows it to be, you know, or have you been in front, have you not? What's the approved, what is the anticipated approval date? If we're not looking for, I just need to have, I need to be better able to tell those clients, you've got to be doing it this way, or you're going to be doing it this way. I just need clarity on that. So if we could have that discussion or a little bit of understanding what we're looking for, then I'd be more than happy to do whatever you need.
I personally like to see where the town sits on the request for an applicant. That's my personal view. I have to defer to Jim Carminucci. I was not aware of the process, and I've been on the board for 13 years. I didn't realize that was a pecking order that we had to follow. I do like to see. I like to see where the towns sit in, because the town is affected from a financial point of view. And like I said to Arnoff, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of the county and the state. And I just feel that we need to know a little bit more about if these projects are being accepted and approved by their towns, and are these projects that the towns really need to see and they want. Do they want?
I would say 90% of your projects probably come before you before they've received site plan approval. And typically what we do is, for those projects that get approved, you adopt an inducement resolution, and one of the conditions to final approval is obtaining all necessary local and state permits. I think the reason for that is that way back when, there were a few projects that were brought in that were completely approved, and there was a concern that those were, you know, as I said during the meeting earlier, done deals. And the IDA expressed an interest in trying to have those projects brought in sooner rather than later. So, you know, I think you can decide what you want to do, but that's the way things have worked historically, and that's the reason why.
And I would say that when we talk with clients about this process, before they spend money, they want to have a discussion about, are they eligible? Will there be incentives available to them? And instead of pulling, some are questioning, should I spend $150,000 to get something approved at the town level, depending on if it's a PDD or something of that nature. If I don't have any chance of doing that, it's sort of, you know, hand in hand at times. They want to know, well, I don't want to spend it if I'm not going to get something, especially if they're eligible for it, and if they're not going to do it anyway, if they don't get that. So it's at, you know, it's, do I spend it? Do I not? It's a quandary at times, and that's why I bring it up.
Yeah, it is a fine line, no question.
It is.
Any comments from the board?
No, I think it's appropriate to take an application certainly before they have a full approval, but generally they have spoken to the town, have a concept plan, et cetera, you know, before they come to us.
And in most cases, Mike, I would say most cases, we will have those conversations with the supervisor.
That's one of the questions that used to come up in the meetings a while ago, was directly turned to Dennis. Have you spoken with the school district? Have you spoken with the town about this application?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
my personal thought is that the planning board meets every month. I mean, you sort of, Jim Carminucci, I understand what you're saying, sir, and I do appreciate that, but I'm just saying that you want to see what the town has to say. The planning board meets every month. The same material that you submit for the application essentially is the same material that you're going to show the planning board. If the town's on board with it, so to speak, then I don't see why we shouldn't be as well. But I don't know. I want to see what the town has to say.
I don't need to see the planning board final approval, but I'd like to know that there's some feedback from the town one way or the other as to how they feel with the project. And I understand, you know, Dennis, and our application and the town's application almost go hand in hand, because you're dealing with business people who want to present a financial package to their lender to try to work something out. So I don't have a problem with what Jim Carminucci has said about historically how this has been handled, but getting some sort of feedback one way or the other would be very helpful.
That's easy for me to do. Phil, go ahead. Sorry.
I think you got to look at it, really give it a good hard look as from the developer's perspective. And that is exactly what Dennis said. If he's going to take and invest, or she is going to invest 150, 200,000 in soft cost or whatever you want to call them, and then have this thing hang in the balance, you've got to run a double track here. You've got to go to the town, you've got to go to the school district. I realize that, but I think also that you can't sit here and not listen to the project and give it a preliminary or some comments like Mike made earlier, that he liked the project and that it looked good and it looked good to the IDA. That it has to run a dual track, and we have to be able to gather that information, whether it's through Dennis or through our own people, through Rod and the subcommittee. But you've got to know some background before we could ever make a decision that says, no, this is the horse that has to come before the cart.
I think all the applicants are ever looking for is a general understanding that there's a preliminary approval before you go through the secret process and start hiring landscape architects and all the rest of it. You can spend 100, 200,000 pretty quick.
Yep.
And so I just think the applicant is looking for just an assessment. How does the board, do they like my project? Do they don't like my project? And, then they feel better about spending that money to go through the town's process.
It actually would put the applicant at a disadvantage when they come before the board, because then this board would say, hey, they're already doing this. They're already moving forward. Why do they need our help?
That's what I was referring to before, because that actually happened way back when the project came, was already through the planning board. They had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on soft costs, and the agency said, why do you need our help? This project's obviously happening, or you wouldn't have spent all that money.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
That's one reason why, and I know Robin Cooper's on the phone here on the line, but out of our office, we don't give anything to anybody, whether the Gazette, the Business View, or anybody, until we know that we've had a meeting and the board's going to consider something. So there's nothing out there before until we received an application, then it is public information at that point. So again, we're not looking to jump the gun, but Jim had a very good point. There were occasions in the past the projects come through for approval, and then you get Joe Blow at home reading the newspaper and he said, look at this. These guys are giving money, and that project's been underway for a month already. And they're talking about giving money away. And that's what's seen in some people's minds, with their eyes.
All right. Dennis, I would then suggest
Well,
to applicant.
I'll continue to communicate with the towns if they're not through the process, and hear what that feedback is, and present that as a to the members when I have that answer. Kevin Tollison, are you still on there? He's on mute. Do you think that works for the majority of your people too? I mean, majority of your supervisors that or am I missing anything?
Yeah, I mean, for me, we definitely want to see the project ahead of time. You know that if I like a project or something, I'm going to send it over to you. Or if you have something that I haven't seen, you and I at least talk about it. Right. I always try to give a little bit of a litmus test to the board and talk to the board, at least saying, hey, is this something that the town wants? Is this something we want to see more of? Or is this something a DOA, dead on arrival? Don't bother wasting your time. So I think working on parallel tracks is the best way to go. But again, I do know that, things can get expensive with professionals. So if they get if they're moving forward, I certainly think IDA in the process is helpful.
Yeah, I know in talking with the folks at LA Group that they always they run up a trial balloon boards before they present, so they have a better idea as to what to expect. So
sure.
I think if Dennis, you continue to do that, you just get a general feeling from the town supervisor and what that person might be thinking within their town. That's fine. Well, let's
Okay.
go with that. Okay.
I'll keep doing that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else?
I think you just might want to circle our calendar for the next potential meeting, Rod.
Well, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
The next meeting is scheduled for January the 8th or June the 8th at 8:30 or 8:35 if we're having a public hearing. Is that time enough to have a public hearing for the Napa application? Does that fit in anyone's schedule?
I'm
Okay
good.
with me.
I will not be here the June 8th.
Okay.
And then Andrea can't vote on that, right?
No,
Oh, no, you can vote on that one. You can't
I
vote on
can
that.
vote, I can vote on Napa. I can't vote on Arnoff.
I was getting confused. Apologize.
That's okay.
So June the 8th would be the next meeting, and it may be virtual, it might be in person, so we'll see. We'll keep everyone posted.
Jim, you said that was enough time?
Yes, sorry, I'm set with that. I just looked at the calendar. I can get that done.
Okay. You can get the notifications out, Jim?
Yes, yep.
All right, let's do June the 8th. It'll be 8:35. Great. Anything else?
One question. For Jim, do we put in the notice that it would be either or?
I'm gonna
As far
have
as
to
public
fit that
hearing?
out, because I think right now the temporary suspension of the public meeting law expires like May 27th, and they never tell us in advance what they're doing.
I know.
So
Comes
it's
up like
really
the day
hard.
after.
It's a tough dance, because if we do it exclusively as a virtual meeting and then they don't extend it, then we can't do the meeting that way. I'll figure it out.
I'll put a reservation in for Milton Town Hall then, just in case.
Yeah, it might not be a bad thing, and then we have to figure it out. I'm gonna reach out and find out what's going on.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay. I'll
Motion
make
to
a motion,
adjourn?
we adjourn.
Yep.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
right.
Scott Duffy, you'll get in touch with everybody. You'll coordinate the meeting with the Arnoff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Thank
Okay.
Yeah, Scott, if you need me to participate, I will.
I'll definitely bring you in, Jim. Yep.
Okay.
Jim, I
Thank
think
you.
it's important that you come in on that if you can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yep.
you.
All right.
Everyone.
Thanks.